Alright, welcome to this session. My name is Barbara Gochalia, and today we are going to look at energy sources. We are going to look at energy sources, and these ones are, we basically have the renewable energy sources and the non-renewable energy resources, right? So the non-renewable energy resources are those resources that cannot be replenished. In other words, they have a fixed supply or they cannot be regenerated. And the non-renewable resources are also known as the conventional energy resources. The conventional energy resources. Then we have the renewable resources. Yeah, the renewable resources are natural resources that are replenished in a short period of time. For example, the renewable resources, we have resources like trees, resources like rivers, yeah, resources like wind, yeah. But non-renewable resources are those resources that cannot be replenished. So examples of non-renewable energy resources, but we are looking at them in the perspective of energy resources. Yeah. So examples of non-renewable energy resources, we have coal, we have oil, and we have natural gas. Those are non-renewable, literally meaning that they get exhausted. So these are fossil fuels. When you talk about, let's talk about fossil fuels. Let's talk about fossil fuels, the coal, oil, and gas. So they are non-renewable energy resources. Are we together? So what are their advantage? The advantage of fossil fuels, one of them is that they generate very large amounts of electricity and can be generated cheaply. So they generate as opposed to the renewable energy resources. Are we together? And then also transporting them is easy. They are very efficient. Efficient means that they are, for example, reliable. Yeah. They give a huge amount of, they provide a huge amount of energy, and they are reliable, they are consistent. Then power stations that use fossil fuels can be built anywhere, right? So we are going to realize that that as opposed to renewable energy resources, which need to be, for example, situated in a particular place, especially when it comes to using, for example, wind, generating wind energy, right? So what are the disadvantages of using the fossil fuels? When we talk about the fossil fuels, we are talking about coal, we are talking about oil, we are talking about gas. Are we together? So their disadvantage is that they produce carbon dioxide when burned, which contributes to global warming. So these fossil fuels, the coal, the oil, and the gas, they generate carbon dioxide, which carbon dioxide, when it accumulates in the atmosphere, leads to increase in the temperatures in the atmosphere, in the long run leading to what you call global warming. We shall be looking at global warming probably in our next lecture. Then burning coal produces sulfur dioxide and causes acid rain. So coal itself, when you talk about sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, those are greenhouse gas emissions. And these greenhouse gas emissions basically are one of the factors that lead to increase in temperatures in the atmosphere, which in the long run leads to what you call global warming. Then they have a disadvantage of oil spills in the way that during the process of generating this oil or extracting this oil can spill and become harmful, yeah, to human beings around or near that place. Then mining coal is difficult, dangerous, and harms the land. So even with the mining itself, it is mining has disruptions that it makes in the earth's surface, beneath the earth's surface. Are we together? Right. Then we have nuclear power. Nuclear power is also energy generated from these from fossil fuels. So nuclear power is generated using uranium. Nuclear power is from uranium, yeah, and which is a metal mined in the various parts of the world. Are we together? So even nuclear power is a non-renewable energy resource. So let's look at the advantages of nuclear power. One of them is that it's fairly cheap. Then it does not, for it does not produce carbon dioxide or sulfur dioxide, so it doesn't contribute to global warming or acid rain. Then also it produces huge amount of energy from small amount of fuel. So we realize that all non-renewable energy resources are better off than the renewable energy resources in a way that they produce huge amounts of energy compared to the renewable energy resources. And for nuclear power specifically, it produces small amounts of waste. So what are the disadvantages of nuclear power? Yeah? So it is also dangerous, this nuclear power, the fact that it's generated from uranium, it can be harmful, right? It can be also harmful. We very well know that this nuclear power is also used the nuclear power, right? They make these arms, yeah. Most of these arms are from the nuclear, yeah. So it is also harmful, right? So much as it generates electricity, it is harmful. Then let's look at solar power. These are now renewable energy resources. Now solar power is basically energy that is generated from the sun, yeah. Anything solar is anything generated from the sun, and it's also known as, solar power is also known as photovoltaic or photoelectric, right? So the photoelectric cells convert light directly into electricity. I believe all of us we are aware, or we know what solar energy is, right? So it is basically reliable when it is during sunny weather, right? It's reliable during sunny weather. So what are the advantages of solar power? One of them, it's free, yeah. It's given the fact that it is from the sun, it's generated from the sun, yeah. That it's generated from the sun, yeah. So it is it's free of charge in terms of the source, yeah. And then it does not produce pollution. So we realize that all renewable energy resources are clean energy. They are clean energy because they do not produce pollution. They do not produce carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, like how the fossil fuels do, or the non-renewable energy resources, right? And with solar power, it can even be used in remote locations. So another type of renewable energy resource is wind power. In wind power, renewable energy is wind power. wind is a non-renewable resource, yeah, but the wind power is now the energy generated from the non-renewable energy resource, yeah, the non-renewable resource, yeah. So we have a resource. The non-renewable resource is the wind, but the non-renewable energy is the wind power. So I believe that we are able to distinguish between the two. It is the resource that gives from which the power is generated, right? So wind, what the advantages of wind power is that it's free, yeah. You do not have to buy the wind, yeah. Then it needs no fuel to be produced, of course. And then all these renewable energy resources, they are free. They are free of charge, and they are clean energy because they do not produce greenhouse gas emissions to the atmosphere like carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide, right? Then the land beneath windmills can usually still be used for farms. So you can do two activities. You can carry out two activities using the same piece of land, yeah. So you will use the windmills to generate wind energy, but still that land, because the windmills do not really occupy a lot of space, and you still have to use that. You will still be able to use that land for farming. So you can do be able to have the two activities, yeah, to be able to use the windmills to generate the wind energy, and also to do the farming on the same plot of land or piece of land. And this wind power, just like the solar power, it can be used even in remote areas. So let's look at the disadvantages of wind power. One of them is that it's unreliable. You know, the power will only be generated, will only be reliable when it's windy, when it's a windy kind of weather. But if it's not windy, it will not. The wind power will not be reliable. Then it is expensive depending on the land cost. The mere fact that you have to have a piece of land where you can place these windmills makes it expensive. Yes, the wind is free, but at the end of the day, you must have land to where to place these windmills that are used to generate the wind energy or the wind power. And then also it can kill birds. This wind, yeah, much as the wind can kill birds, you know, that force of the wind, yeah, can kill these birds, and then it affects television reception nearby. Yeah, so this wind can affect the reception of these television masts, yeah. And then also it is as these windmills are rotating to generate the wind power, it is noisy, so the people around will be inconvenienced with the noise. Now another type of renewable energy is hydroelectricity or hydroelectric power. And we very well know that hydroelectric power is generated from water, yeah, from rivers, lakes, oceans. These ones are they are used to generate the hydroelectric power. For example, here in Uganda, the hydroelectric power is generated from Lake Victoria. So what basically happens here is that a dam has to be constructed to trap water, usually in a valley where there is an existing lake, and this is exactly what it is in Uganda. Then water is allowed to flow through the tunnels in the dam and to turn turbines and thus drive generators. Then hydroelectric power provides 20% of the world's power. So these rivers we are looking, this is natural resource economics, and we are looking at these rivers, these water bodies, these oceans, the seas that are providing, that are resources basically, that are natural resources that we can use to generate power, to generate hydroelectric power. So let's look at the advantages of hydroelectric power. One of them is that free except for the cost of the dam. So the water is free, yeah, from the lakes, from the rivers, from the oceans. That is free of charge. But you have to construct a dam. It will only be the dam that will make you incur the charges. Otherwise, you will not buy the water. Then what you have to note is that all renewable resources are they are clean energy. The renewable energy is clean energy in a way that it does not generate greenhouse gas emissions like carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and so on. And the hydroelectric power, compared to wind power, hydroelectric power is more reliable than the wind power. Remember, we've seen that wind power, it is only reliable when it is windy weather, right? But with the hydroelectric power, as long as the lake is there, it will be more reliable than wind. Then water is stored behind the dam for use. So much as we are using this water from the lakes, from the water bodies, to generate the hydroelectric power, we are still using this water for other uses like drinking, washing our clothes, and very many other uses of water. And then electricity can be generated constantly, unlike other renewable resources. So compared to other renewable resources like wind, like solar, hydroelectric power or hydroelectricity is more constant, it's more reliable and consistent. So let's look at the disadvantages of hydroelectric power. Let's look at the disadvantages of hydroelectric power. One of them is that the dams are very expensive. Much as the water bodies are free of charge, you cannot buy the water, but at the end of the day, we've seen that you have to construct the dams, and this makes it costly. Then building dams floods areas upstream, affects wildlife. So these dams, as they are generating, you've seen this dam at Jinja, Lake Victoria. So that pressure there, it can end up destroying wildlife, especially the marine organisms, and it can also lead to flooding, right? So then also another disadvantage of hydroelectric power is that finding a suitable site can be difficult. So it needs, even as you're looking at this water body, for example, the lake, you must be able to situate a particular place which will be able to generate this electricity, where this dam can be placed to specifically generate this electricity, which may not be very easy. Then water quality and quantity downstream can be affected. So much as we've seen that it might lead to flooding, these dams might lead to flooding and also affect wildlife. So the flooding leads to basically can lead to what we call silting, accumulation of these sediments, accumulation of these sediments basically, which leads to silting, for example. Of course, even with flooding, it can lead to soil erosion, which basically erodes the soil nutrients. Then another example of renewable energy is or renewable resource is biomass. Yeah. So with biomass, basically we mean trees, wastes. Yeah. Trees. We look at trees. These trees can also be used. The wood. Yeah. The wood. Those they are called. As they are cutting the wood, those remains, they can be used, even the plants, the dead plants. Then also the waste, animal waste like manure, it can be used to make, you've heard of biogas. I think biogas is the easiest we can know, right? So biogas is an example of biomass, and it's from biomass, and it is where we get this the biomass. Yeah. So biogas is a very good example here, but even rubbish can be used. Yeah. So when we talk about biomass, we are talking about manure, animal manure. We are talking about rubbish. We are talking about wood chips. We are talking about seaweed, corn stalks, and other wastes that can be used to generate energy, to generate this biomass, which is a renewable energy. Even sugar cane, when it's harvested and taken to a mill, yeah, it is when it's crushed to extract the juice is used to make sugar, but the leftovers, the leftover pulp that are called bagasse can be turned into, can be burned in a power station to generate to generate energy, basically, right? So advantages of biomass, even the plants, dead plants can be used to generate this biomass. So the advantages is that it helps in the recycling. Yeah. Recycling, it helps in recycling the wood chips, the manure. So it helps us to recycle instead of throwing the waste away. For example, we've seen that from rubbish, the energy can be generated. Yeah, biomass can be generated. Then it is cheap. It is cheap. You don't have to buy manure. As long as you have the animals, the manure will be free of charge. Then less demand on the earth's resources. Of course, we've seen that all renewable energy is clean energy because it does not emit greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. So let's look at the disadvantages to using biomass. One of them is that it's difficult to collect the waste. This waste is not easily accessible as we may think, right? Then it must be burned. So this waste, for example, rubbish, wood chips, yeah, that the plants, these dry plants, as during the process of burning to generate the energy, of course, the burning leads to generation of greenhouse gas emissions like carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide, which basically at the end of the day lead to global warming. Then also another disadvantage of using biomass is that using trees cuts down on forests. Much as we've seen that we can use the vegetation, yeah, the dried, we can use, for example, the wood chips, yeah. The wood chips they are coming from the trees, and these trees are from the forests. And so at the end of the day, it will be as good as cutting these trees and having scenarios of for example, desertification. If these trees are not replaced or replanted, at the end of the day, we might have scenarios that contribute basically to global warming. So let's look at geothermal power or geothermal energy. It's also a renewable energy, which is basically from, like these the hot rocks, yeah, below the earth's surface. There may be there is the heating, yeah, below the earth's surface, the rocks, yeah, below these rocks there is heating, and that heating, the heat water produces steam, and this heat, steam, that hot steam can be used to generate energy, but basically the turbines are used. The turbines are used to generate energy from this hot, the hot steam from beneath the rocks or beneath the earth's surface. So that's all about geothermal power, which is a renewable energy. Then let's look at the advantages of geothermal power. So we already know that there is a common advantage of renewable energy, in a way that it is clean energy, because it does not produce greenhouse gas emission, or they do not lead to pollution. And in a way, they do not contribute. If they do not lead to pollution, they do not contribute to global warming or acid rain. Then they do not have much impact on the environment in terms of causing global warming. Then no fuel is needed. Of course, the heating, it's a natural heating under this earth's surface that the hot water is used. So no fuel is needed. Then it's very cheap. It's very cheap, right? So it's very cheap. We've seen that this renewable energy is cheap, yeah, once holes are drilled, right? So let's look at the disadvantages of geothermal power. Let's look at the disadvantages of geothermal power. So it's not very many sites are suitable for generating this geothermal power. It is specifically in some places, some specific places around the world, yeah. So it is not, these places are not common everywhere. And then site may run out of steam. Once the steam runs out, that will be basically the end. And then hazardous gases and minerals may come from the ground. So as much as this hot steam can be used to generate the geothermal energy, it can still spill and cause harm to the nearby people, right? So, and it can be difficult to safely dispose of. Then we have tidal power. Tidal power is similar to hydroelectric power, right? Tidal power is, you know what you call tides, yeah? The tides. So tidal power is similar to, hydroelectric power, only that here, what you would call, it's a huge dam. Even here, a dam is constructed or built to generate the tidal power. But the only difference is that with the hydroelectric power, we are using the lake. With tidal power, we are using a river estuary. So that as the tides go in and out, the water flows into the tunnel, into the dam, and the turbines these turbines are basically turned to basically generate the tidal power. So tidal power is similar to hydroelectric power, only that here tidal power is, whereas hydroelectric power is from the lake, the tidal power is from the river, and here the dam that is used, and when we are generating tidal power, is a huge dam that is also known as a barrage. And only 20 sites in the world have been identified as possible tidal power stations. So what are the advantages of tidal power? So it is free once the barrage is built, just like we saw that with hydroelectric power, it's also free once the dam is constructed. Then it produces no pollution. Of course, we've seen that with all renewable energy is clean energy because they do not emit greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere, and then it needs no fuel. Of course, all renewable energy does not need fuel to be generated, because it is generated from renewable natural resources like wind, like solar, like water bodies that we do not need to buy. And then tidal power, just like hydroelectric power, is also reliable, predictable, and efficient compared to other renewable energy. For example, solar energy or solar power, or for example, wind power, right? So let's look at the disadvantages to tidal power. Just like hydroelectric power, even the barrage is that huge dam that we use to generate the tidal power using from the river estuary. So the barrage is expensive to build, just like we saw the dam is expensive to build, and when we are generating hydroelectric power from the lake. And this barrage affects the environment for miles upstream and downstream. So we've seen that just like with the hydroelectric power, this dam might lead to flooding, right, and silting. So it might that one might damage the environment, because the flooding leads to erosion. So erosion, which basically removes the nutrients, the soil nutrients.